A memo of understanding signed by the U.S. and Iran set aside 60 days for a new round of talks. Well, now the White House says logistics were not predictable. Still, the vice president defended the agreement yesterday.
Have a little bit of faith in the President of the United States. The idea that he is going to strike a deal that's been bad for the American people, it's preposterous. He is the person who's had the courage to fundamentally transform our relationship with Iran and with a lot of other countries over the last year and a half.
The deal was also supposed to halt fighting in Lebanon, but Israel's military announced new strikes today. Lebanon state media says more than a dozen people were killed. Israel says it was targeting Hezbollah. Continued fighting there could unravel this newly signed MOU. And ships have begun to move through the Strait of Hormuz, although cautiously. At least 10 commercial vessels passed through the waterway yesterday. Traffic picked up noticeably after Iran signed the MOU with the U.S. The document says Iran will allow safe passage with no charge for the next 60 days. Also, Senate lawmakers are threatening to block travel funds for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. They say they'll withhold 75% of Hegseth's budget unless the Pentagon submits several overdue reports, including details of the investigation into a deadly strike on an elementary school at the start of the war with Iran. CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes joins us from Zurich, Switzerland. Nancy, good morning. The vice president was supposed to be where you are today. What happened?
Errol, we were expecting to cover 2 days worth of nuclear talks here in Switzerland, but late last night, Vice President Vance did not board his plane to come here, and neither did the Iranians. And the explanations for this delay have been vague.
We're trying to figure out exactly when that's going to happen.
Vice President Vance hinted yesterday that the talks might be off, chalking it up to logistics.
It's not an easy country, Iran, to get out of.
But the new reports out of the Middle East that Iran actually backed out over Israel's strikes on Lebanon could help explain why Vance also lashed out at Israeli leaders.
Anybody in Israel who thinks their biggest problem is the President of the United States needs to wake up and smell the reality of the situation that country is in.
The relationship between this White House and its war partner, Israel, was once unshakable.
Whether we like it or not, this has been one of the greatest wartime presidents.
But the bonds have frayed in recent weeks as their war goals diverged.
Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long, and too many people are being killed.
Trump is also battling mounting domestic opposition to his deal because it front-loads financial rewards for Iran without securing many nuclear concessions.
This is an abject embarrassment to him on the global scale. He didn't accomplish anything in this.
History demonstrates that giving billions of dollars to theocratic lunatics who want to murder us is an exceptionally bad idea.
Trump insists it's a great deal.
It really probably is unconditional surrender.
It is?
I think so.
In a new interview with Axios, he was asked what the war taught him about the limits of his power.
There are no limits.
No.
No, not. I haven't learned that lesson yet. I know there are, but, there are no limits. We defeated them totally militarily.
The Swiss government this morning says that it remains ready to host these nuclear talks whenever they happen. The 60-day clock for negotiations is now running, though President Trump has said that he can extend it if necessary. Errol?
All right, Nancy Cordes. Enjoy your time there if you can, Nancy, at least since you're there. We turn now to CBS News senior foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab in Tel Aviv. Good morning, Imtiaz. So we're all figuring out a new set of facts this morning. Last night, President Trump said online he expects a complete ceasefire at all fronts, and that includes between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Why is that, and why is it not being followed?
That is the million-dollar question. Look, Errol, it's been very clear from the very beginning that Iran had a red line when it came to negotiating with the U.S., and that is what we're seeing in Lebanon. Israel, of course, is occupying a huge section of southern Lebanon. They say they need to be there to really push back the threat of Hezbollah. Iran saying that Hezbollah does not pose a threat and is only defending itself. Whatever the case, in the memorandum of understanding that the U.S. and Iran signed, that President Trump we saw signing in Versailles, in the very first point, it was the cessation of all violence, and that included Lebanon, specifically Lebanon. And so the fact that the violence is continuing is only going to really test this agreement. And again, the numbers of casualties just today alone is staggering. 4 Israeli soldiers killed and at least 18 killed in Lebanon. Errol.
Yes, where does all this leave Prime Minister Netanyahu's relationship with President Trump?
Look, it's in a not so great place. We didn't just hear from the Vice President JD Vance, who used pretty unusually strong language. We've also been hearing it from the president himself. Now, we've been speaking to an Israeli author and military analyst. His name is Yaakov Katz. Here are his thoughts.
When you put all your eggs in one basket, as Netanyahu did with Trump, and completely aligned himself with this president, who is volatile and highly controversial in the United States as well as around the world, what that means is the moment you make a different move, that could have immediate repercussions.
Has Prime Minister Netanyahu painted himself in a corner?
To some extent he has, and he's now trying to figure out how to get himself out of it, right? Netanyahu came to the Israeli people and the Israeli electorate already in consecutive elections and said, I am Mr. America. I know America.
Can Prime Minister Netanyahu repair this relationship?
I think he can, but it will take some work. On the one hand, he needs Trump, and Trump also needs him. Trump doesn't want Netanyahu to come out against the deal because Netanyahu, even on the Republican side, is still seen as the stamp of approval for the issue of Iran. Netanyahu needs Trump because of the elections that are coming on the horizon.
That's Yaakov Katz there talking about the relationship between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. And to give you a sense of just the tenor and the tone of what's happening here in Israel, not only do we have Netanyahu's critics criticizing this deal, we also have his allies as well. The Prime Minister very clearly in a corner right now, trying to look for a path forward. And he seems to be taking a pretty direct one by continuing those operations in Lebanon, which, as we've been saying, has really been testing this memorandum of understanding, which was only signed a few days ago. Errol.
Fast-moving developments. Interesting insight there. Imtiaz, thank you.